And good morning. It is time for the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com. And now here's your host, Mike Hewitt.
Hey, good morning. We've got in the station with us Ludwig von Wiedenhoeft, our co-host, back from Las Vegas, still has his shirt, thank God. And on the line with us, our other co-host, Miles Bauer from the great state of Illinois. Right now, we're waiting to get a connection made with Daniel Horowitz, who's the senior editor for Conservative Review. But while we wait for that to happen, Ludwig, with your trip to Las Vegas, you took your mother, your wife, and your 3 children. So you have no stories to tell about a Las Vegas trip.
Not like the ones that would stay there.
That doesn't seem to make any sense. What a wasted trip to Vegas.
It's good, you know. Went to Disneyland, too.
Well, no wonder you didn't lose all your money and need McDonald's and coupons.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Miles, you've been to Vegas, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It is a big, gigantic money pit.
I love Vegas.
Do you really?
Yeah. Getting a big stogie at night, walking around, volcanoes going off, bright lights.
Do you wear a white suit with a big hat?
Yeah, white linen suit.
You look like Boss Hogg.
Oh, that's so wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist it. That's absolutely terrible. Listen, while we're waiting on Daniel to happen, let's dive in a little bit. Miles, you've been watching the news lately. How are you assessing your man Trump's campaign right now?
Well, I think that the media is trying to create a lot of sensationalism around it, and it's trying to create an aura of panic where it doesn't exist.
I got to tell you, there's 2 things that I wanted to measure, and I was going to save them for the third segment, but we'll dive right in. One of the things that I've watched the media have an absolute field day with is Trump's poll numbers are plunging, is the word that I saw over and over, which means that they went to the room on the internet that they've got. Which word should we use? Let's use plunging. That'll really sound significant. Folks, that's actually literally what they do. They've got an internet chat room that's only made up of journalists, high-ranking journalists, by the way, and they literally float which word that they think will best advance whatever it is that their agenda is. So I find that interesting. All of them use the word plunging. The reality of it is that it wasn't plunging, but I'm one of those guys that I like facts way better than I do spin. So I sit back and I look at all of the elections coming from 1980 forward in the mid-June polls. So if you look at Reagan, if you look at Dukakis, if you look at all of them all the way forward, the candidate that won the election in every single instance except for George Bush's second term, in every other instance, including when the Democrat won, Clinton. In every instance, the candidate that won was down in the June polls. In every single instance. But they don't tell you that on Fox News or NBC, etc. And I find it so insulting that they drive the news rather than report the news. Then the news is we're right exactly where this campaign is always at, historically. Whether you like Trump or not, we can't just say we don't like the facts, so we'll ignore them and tell the story we like better.
I think it's funny that they're calling a $4 billion man broke.
Yeah. Well,
He's got $4 billion, or at least in assets, and you're telling me he's broke and won't be able to finance a campaign if he had to do it on his own? Come on.
Well, I don't know what he's got liquid. I don't know that, but what they're referring to is the FEC statement that was released the other day. And when I look at the FEC statement, and I don't know if Miles and I see this the same, but let me tell you my view. We'll let Miles chime in. When I look at it, I see the current snapshot result of a man that did what he said he would do. He funded his primary.
Yeah.
Now, the drawback to funding the primary is you spend the entire primary season saying, I'm funding this. Okay? So when you get to that point where normally a candidate like Hillary, who's made some bombastic deal with everyone that's got a checkbook in America, she's got a ton of dough. Okay, there's your dough. Now, by the way, it's not as much as they're reporting, which goes to Miles's point last night when we were texting this debate. And he is exactly right. She doesn't have as much dough as they're saying. Because when I got done with that debate, Miles, I went and looked also, same as you would. I went, gee, he's right. I hate that part. So, but the point is that's what I am seeing, is that we're where we would expect a guy to be in his FEC statements that funded his own campaign. Listen, they opined at great length that he spent a lot of the money with his own corporations. Now, if I were running a campaign, and I've run campaigns, a lot of them, by the way, if I were running a campaign, guess where I'd spend my money? With the corporations that I own or have an interest in, that's where I would invest my money first, when they can provide the product and the services that my campaign requires. For anybody to deny that they would do that is silly. So what do you think? What do you think, Miles?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I think, that this whole storyline that they're saying, like, Hillary's got $43 million and Trump only has one, I think it kind of defies just common sense. I mean, to sit there and think that Trump could not access money if the campaign actually needed it, and to say that, Hillary is just that much so far out ahead of him is simply the echo machine going off, trying to say that the Trump campaign is in trouble, which I think tells me, and maybe I'm biased, being
no, not Trump public, and you're not biased.
No Trump public in there.
I think that the press is, as usual, providing cover to a weak candidate.
Well, the question I have for both of you then is, everybody through the primary kept saying, oh, the media wants Trump. They're making Trump. They want him to win. And then they get him here, and now they're trying to destroy him. But couldn't it have been a lot easier to destroy somebody like Cruz?
But listen, no. First off, we could debate that, but they did this in the last presidential election. We had several. I don't remember the count, but we had several. What they did was they said, okay, Herman he's the front runner. Well, they never determined where they got that from. They just made him the front runner, then they destroyed him. Then they'd make the next guy the front runner, and they would destroy him. In Trump's case, they really believed that he was not in this to win it, that it was strictly to build brand value. They believed that. So they said, let's build this guy up. He's going to fall on his face, and Hillary, who's the most defective candidate in American history, will win. Ain't that wonderful? And, of course, he went, but I'm not getting out, and I am winning. And they're going, no, you didn't read the script. Stop that. He's not stopping.
I do got to believe that at first, I'm not sure he really got in to go all the way. I think at first he was kind of getting in to stir the pot and get people to wake up, maybe get a Bush or a Cruz to step up and kind of go the different direction. Now, once he started getting a little popularity and some grasp, he stuck around.
Do you buy that, Miles?
No, I mean, and so where my pushback would come from, if you go back into the 90s and the 80s and you see some of those interviews, he's been consistent for decades saying, look, if America really gets bad enough, I will get into this and do it.
Yep. All the way back into the 80s, by the way. And,
yeah.
And in fact, in a big, long, gigantic debate on Facebook, I confessed to that because, frankly, the debates here on the radio, you, Miles, caused me to go back and look at not just the things that I wanted to look to reinforce my belief, but to look with an open-minded hat on. And then I started discovering what you'd been talking about. I went, okay, he's right. A little bit. I won't tell you you're entirely right, but
it's twice
a little
already.
bit.
Twice.
But this is just a little bit.
Okay, just a little bit.
The other ones were numbers, and as Miles would tell you, numbers are kind of hard to deny.
Unless you're an economist.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Then you choose which ones you want to work.
Isn't that the truth of it? Yowzers. I think you're exactly right, though, Miles, that I think he had a long-term plan. I do think he's having trouble shifting gears from primary to general, but I think terminating the guy that, frankly, I think hurt him, maybe I'm thinking about that wrong, because I say he hurt him, but he won dominantly in the primary. So maybe he thought this is what you've served your purpose, and thank you very much. Here's a goodbye check and goodbye.
It's just like a boxer with a trainer until he gets to the big time, and Once he gets to the big time, he needs the big time trainer.
You think so?
Yeah, you got to have the big time guy.
Yeah.
This is the big stage now. The minors are done in the big leagues.
This is the guy that supposedly tripped or hurt or grabbed or whatever the reporter. I watched that thing over and over on YouTube and stop, trying to get a better look. It was just an unadulterated, bold-faced lie. It just didn't happen.
Ruined her career.
I don't know. She's the one that did it, though.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know.
I don't think it ruined her
career.
career.
A career out of it.
I don't think it ruined her career. I watched her ugly mug on the TV last night.
What channel?
She was She was on Fox News giving an interview. She's turning into a talking head.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So which is what she wanted in the first place. What do you think?
I mean, I think, I mean, she's obviously trying to be a progressive superstar, and I think that was kind of her agenda all along, to make something from nothing, because clearly, did we know of her prior to the so-called incident? And, I mean, she's got to milk her 15 minutes of fame, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, but she is, to Ludwig's point, she's trying to turn that into a career.
Right.
Everyone may have thought that blew up in her face, but she's still out there posturing because she's got some name ID, and people often forget what that name is tied to. And by the way, a lot of people believed her. Yeah. I mean, I might have believed her if I hadn't have sat there and just literally went frame by frame of every video version I could find of it. It just didn't happen.
I saw it one time, and I'm like, this girl is so full of it.
It just was a non.
She busted through Secret Service, was right there. She could have gotten hurt. So, speaking of Secret Service, how about the first assassination attempt on Trump?
I didn't see enough of that. What was did you watch it or did Miles watch it?
A British national came to Nevada with the intention to shoot him, and went up to a police officer, grabbed his gun, and tried to grab the gun, and they immediately subdued him. But he also had the plan that if it didn't go there, it was, I think, Phoenix or something, he would try it again.
Yeah, can I throw this out about this? It's like, if the same thing had happened to Hillary, don't you think there would have been an explosion all across the media? And yet, when it happened to Trump, it's like, oh, well, this actually happened in Vegas. Next story.
Oh, I agree. If it was like Hillary, if this would happen to Hillary, this would have been almost like the next JFK type media blitz.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, you might be right.
Because like even Mike here said, well, I didn't see a lot about it.
I didn't see a lot
You're
about it.
You're the political guru.
I'm not a guru.
And you didn't even see much about it. That's how little they put out there about it.
What did Jim Riley call me, a political monkey?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah. He brought a tuxedo in one day for you to wear.
Yeah, but he had his sailor shirt on.
Yeah, he did.
Right now he's listening and he's throwing stuff at the radio. Sorry, Jim. I got to get him warmed up because I'll be back in the studio with him on Friday.
Oh, I'll have to get up to listen to that.
Oh, yeah. I'll probably start getting texts coming in shortly telling me to. Anyways, I don't know what the issue is technically with Daniel Horowitz, but there's enough for us to chew on to try to figure it out. But what we are going to do is we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we'll pick up right there, folks. We'll be right back.
Yes, we will be right back, Mike. But you know what? I have to have the right screen in front of me. Okay?
Is that what it is?
Yeah. I have the right screen, so we will be right back.
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com, because you deserve it.
This is the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by renegaderiver.com. And we're into segment 2, and we're just trying to isolate some phone issues here where we're not able to make or accept long-distance phone calls on only but one line. So
it's one of those things where we had a choice at the beginning of the show almost 4 years ago. Do we do pre-records or live?
Right.
I love live. But anyhow, listen, Miles, when we left off, we were talking about the news's lack of reporting on the attempt on Trump's life, and it seems like no matter what the issue is, the news is willing to make it a political, use it as a political tool.
Yeah, I think one of the most stunning events that occurred this past week was when the Obama administration sent out the 911 transcript and redacted a majority of what the terrorists said and attempted to paint it out to be more Christian than Islamic. And I think it's stunning how the Obama administration is really attempting to take the Islamic side out of all of these events and turn it into a gun issue.
I got to tell you, first off, I agree with you, but I'd add something to that. I do think they're trying to make it a gun issue. There's no question about that. I think for a handful of reasons, though. This is where I get shot and really people hate me and start screaming at the radio. But listen, I think President Obama is on their side. I don't know how else to say it. When you redact Allah and insert God, you're not changing that to a gun issue. You're making a religious statement. And so I pause and go, everything that he's doing, little things and big things, changing Allah to God, not defending the Muslim Kurds who are fighting on the side of liberty and are probably the single greatest key to problem resolution in the Middle East. He's abandoned them. And anyone that doesn't agree with me politically, it's okay. Get on the internet, do some Googling, look for factual statements, and then find multiple sources so that you can feel safe in saying it's not an internet. Abe Lincoln said it wasn't true because it was on the internet story and all that. Listen, it's true. These things, you can't look at them. You could go one at a time and think these things don't add up. But when you look at it in total, if you're not concerned about what's going on in the executive branch of our government, then you're fooling yourself. You're lying to yourself. And I'm not trying to be shrill. I'm just adding up and connecting the dots. But listen, that's a topic for an entire another show. And in fact, maybe we should do that soon. But I want to touch on one other topic. I think Miles and Ludwig both watched this on my Facebook page at midweek this week. I put on my Facebook page. In fact, I've changed my own words. Speaking of being political, I started out by saying I'm ashamed of those within our party seeking to thwart the will of the majority of voters, and I got pushed back on that. And I said, okay, I get it. So I've changed it. I wrote, I am disappointed by those within our party seeking to thwart the will of 13,300,472 voters. So I got fairly specific. It was probably the most explosive little piece that I've ever had on my Facebook page. People on both sides were enraged with me. I had a bunch of people unfriend me. But I got to tell you, folks, it's not about whether I'm a Trump publican or a cruiser, or it's not about anything. It's about the fact that this country of ours is not some third nation banana republic where we ignore what the folks have said. I don't have to love Trump or I don't have to dislike Trump. None of those things matter right now when I look at this particular topic. What matters is he won. I don't have to like it. You don't have to like it, or we can all love it. None of those things matter. He won. And if we're going to try to undo his victory, man, that makes us a very different country. And we need to look the man in the mirror and have a long talk with him and say, is that really who we are? And just so you all understand, I've got some very dear friends that passionately disagree with me on this. They're still finding a way to see if they can flip the convention. Folks, I cannot tell you how opposed I am to that. And the reason is not, like I'm saying, it's not where's Mike Hewitt on Trump. That doesn't have anything to do with this equation. What has to do with it is if we get to the point where we say we don't like the results of an election, so we're going to flip it, if we get to that result, man, that's a slippery slope. That really is. So people say, Mike, it's not an election, it's a nomination. I've said that before on the air, okay? But when we decided as a culture, as a society, and as political parties, both Democratic and Republican, to have primaries, to hold public elections and public caucuses, by the way, because you folks have heard me defend them, and I do passionately. But when we decided to do our nominating process that way, we extended a commitment of integrity to folks that would take part in it. And if we say, jeepers, we don't like the result of that integrity, we're going to hold back. Folks, that's wrong. I'm just telling you. So if you don't agree with me, I'm sorry. That's my position on it. Miles, am I off in the woods? What do you think?
Yeah, no, remember you and I were going back and forth during the primaries, and I remember your position all along was, look, Miles, we established the rules right up front. Everybody was notified right up front what the rules were.
Right.
And, you held to that. And
listen, my guy lost.
You are correct. Yeah.
My guy lost. I'm a big boy. He still calls me a cruiser when we're debating in text, cruiser. I like Cruz. It's okay, but he lost. And in politics, it's not for the faint at heart. You can get to really believe in a candidate. Miles believes in Trump. I'm on the Trump train because the Trump train is the only train running to victory in November.
4 years ago, I had to go to a polls and vote for a guy I could not stand. Mitt Romney.
Oh, I thought that was when you were on the ballot.
No, that was 2 years ago. I had to really hold my nose on that one.
You know what?
I had to drag my wife in to do it.
She's going, I'm not going to. You really don't know if she voted for you, by the way.
I know.
Yeah, she probably didn't.
Probably did. She went, yeah, right.
Yeah, she's going, I know him. I'm not doing that.
I voted for you. Uh-huh. Look me in the eye. Why are you holding the kids when you're telling me this?
To me, though, honest, I think that these voting... Now, listen, and it kind of goes to Miles's point. If the folks that don't agree with me right now that are part of our party think that I'm wrong, then what they need to do is begin a campaign to change the rules for the next election cycle. Mm-hmm. But you can't say, we don't like the rules we agreed to. We're going to ignore them. That sounds
taking my ball and going home.
That, to me, sounds like a bunch of mean-spirited children in a sandbox fighting over a Tonka truck.
2 years ago, Newt Gingrich said, right after we won the Senate, all we have to do is not fight, and we win the presidency. This is in our hands. Silver platter, here you are. It's served.
Yep.
Don't fight.
The most effective candidate they've ever put up since Andrew Jackson, who I think was a terrorist, by the way.
And he said, they have nobody
nobody but her. It's it.
Just don't fight. And we've done everything Newt Gingrich said not to do.
So then they said, okay, everybody get into the circular firing squad. Ready, aim, fire.
How bad do we really want this to get? Lindsey Graham, you in?
So here's Trump. If you look at it from their point of view, from Miles's point of view, put words in his mouth, okay? The man generates more popular votes than any other candidate in the history of the Republican Party. Let's get rid of him. I go, what?
Yeah.
What'd you say? I'm arguing with Miles last night in text. I'm talking about he's not doing this, he's not doing this, he's not doing this. He said he's not a typical... Would you say he's not a traditional politician, or what were your words?
Right.
Yeah. So Miles is going, why would he do that? That's not why he's won. So, and I'm going, all right, you're right about that. I hate that part. There's that 3 times in one show.
Man. Man.
Anyways, Miles, it goes to your point, what you said. I said at midpoint on the air with you that whatever the outcome is, if we've all followed the rules, the outcome is the outcome, and that's where we're at right now.
Can he get a VP to pull these people in? You think that even matters?
Listen, I don't know, but then there's people like me saying, why aren't Cruz and Trump having a dialogue right now? Why aren't they sitting at breakfast going, I don't like you and I don't like you, but the country needs us to come together? Why isn't that conversation happening?
I think this is going to start to hurt Cruz, Mike, or at least relative to me. And I think you and I brushed on this last night while we were texting. If Cruz doesn't eventually come around, and I mean, what? The Indiana primary was in early May, and now we're in middle of June. If he doesn't eventually come around and say, okay, I just got to get on the train because this is the party, I think eventually some of us on the Trump train are going to look back at Cruz 4 or 8 years from now and look at him and go, dude, where were you? Right.
Now, listen, the calculation is this, though. Two things. First off, maybe Trump isn't taking Cruz's calls, or maybe Cruz isn't. We'll never know that part. We'll never know the inner relationship that they've created. I know that I've been a candidate, like you and I talked about in text. I've been a candidate and had different relationships with my opponents. The last race I was in for me with my name on the ballot, there were 8 Republicans. Some of them like me still. Some of them never liked me and never will. And that's okay. It's okay. It's what human nature is about. But I do know that when I wanted the endorsement of other candidates that withdrew, I had to reach out to them. So I'm not disagreeing with you, Miles, but I am telling you that in my race, the only thing that I can equate this to is that I had two of the candidates. In fact, only two withdrew. Both of them endorsed me, but in both cases, I had to dial them up and say, "Can we talk? Okay, what do you want me to do? How can I do it? We need, and what can we trade?" We had those conversations.
But do you think it's a little odd that Rubio has already come out, made peace, and said he's okay?
Yeah, but listen now. If you're the cruisers driving down the street listening to this, you're yelling at the radio saying, "Miles, wait a minute. He didn't say Rubio's father killed JFK." and now listen, he went over the top now. I'm going to put my cruise hat on for just 10 seconds. In the final 30 days of that race, Trump went over the top, and some folks will never forgive him. I'm just being blunt with you. But on the other hand, we still have to beat Hillary because she's still the most effective candidate that America's ever had. And frankly, I don't think America can take another 4 years of an Obama administration where they appear to be siding with our enemy.
Cruz went back to work.
He did go back to work.
He's
You're right
actually
about
back
that.
in the Senate. There was a thing he was standing up against after the Democrats did their filibuster. He got up and spoke for a little bit after them. I mean, he went back to work,
and I saw
he believes in that.
I saw he was campaigning for a primary challenger against an incumbent Republican somewhere.
It's in Colorado.
Yep. So he's still out. He's still out swinging now. And to Miles's point, though, why is that? I don't know why that's not happening. Now, listen. I don't.
They did actually ask him about Trump, and he just sidestepped the entire.
Yeah, and I still can't believe that these two guys that both pride themselves in making deals and communication, I just can't believe that they're just flat not talking. You take a guy like Trump, who his main selling point was, "I know how to make deals." So I'm thinking, all right, I think I believe that. But if he knows how to make deals, why isn't he making a deal with Cruz? And now the only difference between you and I, Miles, on this particular topic that I think the only difference is that I don't put as much value in a Cruz endorsement or Cruz playing ball as you do in that race. I don't know that it really has, because the folks that support Cruz, the ones that are that angry, will frankly they won't like Cruz if he makes an endorsement.
I think a Kasich endorsement's way more important than a Cruz.
I'm sorry, I can't stand Kasich.
I know, but I think
haven't
that's
got
way more
myself
important.
beyond that. I like Trump way more than I like Kasich. I think Kasich's a mean-spirited individual. I just do. I'm sorry, but I do.
But I do think his endorsement of the two, if you had to choose between Cruz and Kasich, it's the Kasich one that would matter most. Because Cruz is still the outsider of the party.
Sounds like Kasich is not going to come around from all that I have read.
No, he's not. But listen, I saw another side of him at Mackinac Island where he was talking to his own staffers like they were absolute animals, and then threw his coat over his shoulder like Uncle Bob, and walked into a group of people. And from that moment on, I was done following this guy. I don't believe in treating people the way I watched that guy treat people. And so it wasn't even an ideological thing. It wasn't that I'm a conservative and he's not, which he's not. That wasn't the issue. The issue was I don't treat people that way, and I'll be darned if I'll support somebody that does. So for me, and I don't think I've ever mentioned that on the air before, but for me, that's where I drew a line through his name. He was done. So the fact that he's still being rigid and thick-headed doesn't surprise me, because that's the man I saw on Mackinac Island. So
yeah. And I mean, and I think to Ludwig's point, are we reaching a point in the campaign where endorsements are going to just sound hollow?
You know what? We already may be there now. One of the things, though, that's changing that, frankly, is the 24/7 news cycle and the internet, because it used to be that these folks were a lot more inaccessible. And they're just a lot more accessible now, and I think that's diluting the value of endorsements. And in some cases, some of the party endorsements or incumbent endorsements are actually negative. So they just are. I don't know whether this has diluted newspaper endorsements. It certainly hasn't had an impact yet on organizations like the Realtors Association or the restaurant. If you're part of those organizations and you respect those folks' views. But political endorsements by political people, I don't know if they bring a lot to the table. I think I agree with you on that, Miles.
Well, you expect it, right? Unless it's a primary. In the general, you're like, yeah, okay, you're Republican. You're gonna, of course, you're gonna endorse Clinton.
Right.
No, I mean, you just want to endorse, or you're gonna endorse the. It really doesn't matter. And then the newspaper one. How many people read the newspaper anymore?
Listen, people that vote in primaries read the paper a lot.
Yeah.
You start reading the demographics on the paper, and then read the demographics on who's voting in political primaries. Both sides, by the way, folks. You'll see that the papers still do have not the clout that they used to, but it still matters, especially in state house and state senate races. Still
Even
has
in this election cycle, because if you look, a lot of people voting were the abnormal voter age-wise. Like most of Bernie's voters were under 25.
Yeah, but that's going to have an impact on his voice because a lot of folks don't think that those people will be voting in the general. So we'll see. But listen, we've got to go to a break, up against the proverbial hard break, and we'll be right back where we left off on that, folks.
This is the Mike Hewitt Show on News Talk 1090 WKBZ and West Michigan's Talk 1230 WTKG.
RenegadeRiver.com is new and used firearms, all priced to sell, plus ammo, reloading supplies, optics, clothing, lasers, and yes, tactical gear. RenegadeRiver.com, family owned right here in Michigan, because you deserve it.
And the Mike Hewitt Show is brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com, and we are already into segment numero trace. Is that right? Am I navigating languages here correctly?
I'm not sure which one you're aiming for. Miles, what would it be in French?
Trois, right?
Wow.
Trois, yeah.
Un, deux, trois. I slept through French class. Miles, is that true or not?
It is true. I was sitting right next to you.
And I gave everyone names. He was Frederic and I was Xavier. So I
Xavier?
Yeah, so I heard.
This was in French class?
Yeah, and so I heard all the way through that, her yelling at me, Xavier, Xavier. That's the only thing I remember from French class. So. Seems like only yesterday, doesn't it? Listen, speaking of when we were young and Ronald Reagan was a candidate, that goes to your point off air, Miles, he wasn't immediately responding to something that his opponent said. Right now we have immediate, instant. Hillary says something, Donald Trump can immediately respond, and the audience, us watching streaming video or watching Twitter or watching wherever we're watching from, everything's immediate. And so it used to be they could all gather in the bunker, what we call it in campaigns. You could come, gather in the campaign bunker and say, all right, that moron said X, Y, Z. What are we going to say? Well, you don't have that luxury anymore. You just don't. That's even changed from G.W. Bush till now. They had a lot more bunker time to sit down and think, what are we going to do? Right now, people anticipate when Hillary says something, they want Donald Trump to be right on it right now. And so it's a whole different world.
Well, you can get your phone and watch Hillary on the TV while you're looking at your screen and just see a new Trump tweet.
Yep.
Oh, she said that. Oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah,
There's his response.
He's sitting there with his phone in his hand, or he's got someone doing it for him, but I think it's him.
He says he does it.
I believe him. So he's sitting there. Anyway, Miles, let me regress for a second. When we were off air, you were talking about your son. So tell us that story.
Yeah, so I was visiting with my son on Father's Day, and he was all excited about how Trump, he thinks Trump actually beat Hillary when Hillary tried to go after him about delete your account.
Right.
And Trump came back and said, why don't you go after your 33,000 emails that you deleted?
Right, exactly right.
And in his age group and his friends and, the folks he associates with, they thought that was the best thing when he came back and to them, Trump just beat her straight out. And I was just fascinated because, you and I, when, we were growing up, whether it was Carter, Ford, Reagan, whatever, we didn't get that immediate response. No. So there was no, immediate boom, counter. It was a long, slow process of back and forth.
Now it reminds me though, Miles, of when we segued when political campaigning on a national level segued from radio to television, and we always reflect back to the JFK Nixon thing where Nixon looked like he was sick, like a cardboard cutout, and JFK was lively and looked healthy and looked bright. And so that was a real change for the type of politicians that were coming to the national stage. And listen, I think this is going to, maybe Trump is an example of it, I don't know that yet, but I think it's going to have a significant impact on the type of candidates that come to the national stage.
No, and I mean, and I totally agree. I think it's fascinating that if you believe what's going on in the media, Hillary has people specifically set up just for social media.
It couldn't be her. Her only personality is nasty.
Right.
No one wants to have her tweeting all day long.
She should have sent Trump a cloth to wipe off his phone to delete that tweet.
Yeah.
Listen, the social media started with Obama. In 2008, he was the first one to really utilize it. Last election cycle, he even blew it up. Trump has taken it to a whole new level.
He has, but listen, the whole culture now is immersed in it, starting with Miles' son, Miles Jr. He's in it. My granddaughters are in it. This show, we are streaming live on Facebook right now. So just during the stage of time this show has been on the air, the world is changing. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Obviously, the show will be at some point set up on YouTube for watching later on, and it's a whole new world. It just is.
Do any of you guys Snapchat?
No.
Miles, do you?
No, I don't.
Remember
Instagram?
I got the show's on Instagram. Good point.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Any of the other ones do you use?
I've got Instagram. I've got Twitter, Facebook. I think that's it for us.
Flickr?
No Flickr.
I'm trying to figure out.
You do
the ones
all
I
of these
have.
things?
Yeah, I have
But
them all.
the part I can't get, now maybe I'm in the middle of proving myself wrong even as I ask the question, but I don't get how that translates into anything. I get why it helps Trump or why it helped Obama for communication, but in the business application, I'm not seeing it so much yet.
Well, for like Flickr, which is Yahoo's version of Instagram, and obviously Facebook now owns Instagram. If you're a visual type company, and I think I've told you before, on Renegade River, those would be two great things for your company because they're pictures. So take a picture of the newest AR you got in or the newest bodyguard or whatever, and then people follow that stuff. To Snapchat, I'm still haven't gotten that whole thing through. I don't know why I want to take a picture of myself with a reaction to answer somebody else's question, but kids get that one.
So now here's me. I'm watching the stream that you do for the show. Mm-hmm. Going, who's the fat guy? Well, wait, that's me. So I'm going, well, wait, the reason I'm not on TV is I've got a face for radio. So why are we doing this?
Yeah, now you're streaming.
So, it's a changing world, Miles. It really is. Brian Thomas is over there laughing out loud at me.
This social media, though, the problem with it is that the news coming on there, people are taking it as if it's legitimate news.
Right.
And not understanding that a lot of it is somebody in their grandma's basement or on their phone in the middle of a diner in the middle of nowhere with no real facts.
And the other side that goes with that is the replication of that error.
Yeah.
So the person, by the way, could be honest. They're just wrong. And it replicates itself over and over and over like a big, ugly wave.
It becomes true. And the other problem, and I remember Herm Edwards, he was the former coach of the New York Jets. He meets with all NFL rookies now, and they're supposing that they have when they come in the league, and tells them, don't hit send. That's his big thing. Don't hit send. Because once you hit send, there is no taking it back.
Yeah, he's right about that.
The days of AOL mail where you could send it and be like, oh my God, I didn't want to send it. Can I get it back? Doesn't exist.
Now, Miles, you're kind of an oxymoron on this topic because on one hand, you're probably the most technical computer-related first person I've ever met in my life. And on the other hand, you're not into any of this stuff, are you?
No, I'm pretty much just Twitter a little bit, Facebook a little bit. You know, I'm more in trying to make it work rather than trying to use it.
The other day, he posted a comment on that thread, if you will, from Facebook about my position on the party, trying to flip the party. And I'm going, holy smokes, that's Miles Bauer posting on Facebook. It was revolutionary. I wanted to screen save it, Miles. So could you just, I'm teasing a little bit, but you don't do that. So
just so you know that if you two got on Snapchat, that'd be the end of it.
What does that mean?
Facebook's no longer cool because you guys are on it. They said once the grandparents got on Facebook, it was done.
Young people are harsh, I'm telling you. I don't know why we let you sit in.
That was Ludwig. That wasn't Matt saying it. That was Ludwig.
That's fun stuff. It is a changing world. But the interesting part is that it's, and I mentioned national politics, but it's even on a local basis for state reps and for even county commissioners are starting to stream, starting to do all of these different ways to try to reach out to folks. And part of it reminds me of a debate that we've had on this show even since Miles has joined us, and that's the amount of money that's spent in campaigns, because traditional campaigning is huge, and it is exactly what empowers lobbyists. So now if a state representative, a candidate for state representative can touch X number of people for free, that's a big savings, and it leaves that candidate a little more pure from getting money from D.C. or from Lansing or whatever that person's running for. So, I mean, there's some avenues there that I'm liking, but I'm sure that the money folks will change that soon.
Well, they have.
But you know what, though, Mike? That represents a totally different skill than politicians in the past ever had to have in their toolbox. Exactly
true. I'm exactly in agreement with you, but it goes back to how stiff Richard Nixon looked in his debate when they're going, I kind of liked him till I saw that.
He was winning that election.
He was winning.
And I watched the thing on the road to the White House on CNN. I know I've mentioned the show a few times.
Yep.
He apparently had just went to Alaska, flew back, hit his knee on the car the morning of that debate, and was in dire pain. And he was sweating from the hot lights, and he didn't take makeup, and he lost the election, because of that debate.
Right. Now, but here's another thing. You mentioned somebody mentioned C-SPAN, I think, but I want to make sure that I mentioned that at 10 o'clock today, our congressman from West Michigan, the 2nd District, Bill Huizenga, will have the Fed Reserve Chair, Janet Yellen, in front of him, asking her some pretty hot topic questions about the economy and some policies that the Reserve is either taking or ignoring, your choice of the words. And the reason I bring that up now is that you'll be able to go to the finance services. If you just Google Federal Finance Services, you'll see that will be streaming live on that page, along with on C-SPAN. So I tell you that because those conversations and those kind of panelist reviews in the past weren't. I mean, when Miles and I were back talking about Jimmy Carter, no one sat around and watched that stuff. You didn't have access to it unless you physically went there and sat in the balcony or out in the back of the room, depending on the format. So this technology is changing us a lot. I'll be trying to watch him going down the road because I'll be driving back to the shop. But I think it's a big deal to watch our second district congressman get a hold of the secretary of or the chair of the Fed Reserve. So
that's pretty cool.
And not to put your point down.
Of course.
Remember, Trump is going to have a press conference at 10:30 Eastern today.
Okay.
And I think he's going to rebut what Hillary said yesterday.
Yep, that's what I understand is that he's planning on saying no. That's just let me show you why you're wrong.
Yep.
So
I think he's going to pull like Lincoln did to Douglas. If Douglas is here today, I'll be there this afternoon. He's just going to fall around, let her go, and then he'll come in and counterattack. Because I think out of everything you've seen, Trump's not an attacker; he's a counterattacker.
And I might be going out on a limb, but I think we might hear Crooked Hillary a few times.
You think so? The worst part about that name is it's exactly right. I wish I could say, okay, that's just a political thing, but he's spot on.
If he would have said beautiful Clinton.
No.
Then we would have been going, whoa.
That was
so mean.
We can't have a president that cannot see that good. That'd be a bad thing. That would be a bad thing. She's not that. Worse than aesthetics, she's just a mean person.
Line marks from all the scowling she's done in her lifetime.
Listen to all of the reports coming back from the state police in Arkansas and the Secret Services. The guy that had to sit outside the Oval Office There was an entertaining chair to sit in. What a group of people.
He didn't watch Jerry Springer back in the day because he lived it.
The idea, though, that there's that many people that want to return to that, it just defies gravity to me. And they're going, well, Mike, he had a good economy. No, he didn't. Newt Gingrich had a good economy. That's just the math. Am I wrong, Miles?
Well, and I'd say, remember, this is the rise in the internet.
Yep, you're absolutely. Listen, we're out of time. The music's on, so do me a favor, folks. Speaking of Twitter and social media, find us at Talk Music. He's doing the signs. I start laughing every time he does
That's
it.
easy for you to say.
Yeah, smooth talker that I am and all. Twitter at the Talk Mike Hewitt Show. Facebook at / the Mike Hewitt Show, and of course MikeHewitt.com. Is it the MikeHewittShow.com?
The MikeHewittShow.com.
It's a good thing we got you, Ludwig. I'm telling you. You got to see these notes, folks. I'm telling you, 30 seconds. Listen, I will be back on Friday at 8 a.m. I don't know what I'm going to do that early in the morning. But this show will be back on next Wednesday. Next Wednesday at 9. I'll look forward to seeing you. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And not 5, 4, 3. Thanks, folks. We'll see you next Wednesday.